Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Champagne Sundays with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
It's July 3rd, 2022, and welcome to another Big Blend Radio Champagne Sunday show, airing live today from Silver Spring, Maryland. This is our second Maryland show, I think, Nancy. I can't keep up, right? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Because we did one in Easton, Maryland.
Right.
And was that, Easton, Maryland? Or was it Delaware? Yeah. Last year in the fall. So now we're in Silver Spring, Maryland, outside of D.C., which we're scared to go to because we've never done it and we don't want to drive it. But it's around the corner from us. And, of course, we're your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the crazy mother-daughter travel team on our Love Your Park tour, traveling full-time across the country, and also publishers of Big Blend Magazines, which is a group of digital magazines covering everything from food and wine to travel to quality of life, business, all those good things. So you can keep up with us at blendradioandtv.com. And excited today. You know, this is the Independence Day weekend, and today we're going to talk about independence. How about that? Yeah, I thought this was actually a really good, good segue. We're going to be, we're going to be talking about getting to good riddance. We first met psychologist and author Dr. Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt back in January of 2021. She joined us on Big Blend Radio with her book, Move On, Mofo. I'm behaving myself. Live, laugh, and let shit go. We can say things on the show if we want to.
Yeah,
we're welcoming her back today on Big Blend Radio to talk about her new book, Getting to Good Riddance, a no BS breakup survival guide. It's coming out through Turner Publishing, great publisher. It's coming out July 26th this year. So go to her website, JodieEckleberry-Hunt.com. She's on social media too. But welcome back, Jodie. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, it is good. I think it's warmer this time that we're talking to you. Last time we were in the snow in Wisconsin, and this time we're in sunshine. A storm happened last night, but how are things in Michigan?
It's a stunning day. We're going to have low 80s and lots of sunshine, and you couldn't ask for a better day here.
It's amazing.
Cool.
You know, we've been to Michigan in the summer, and when you drive through areas like here, we were in Arkansas. We've been through Ohio. We've been all over already this year, and it's all green and beautiful and sunshine. It's hard to imagine, that you all went through to get to that green, and that's kind of a metaphor in a way of what happens, in regards to a relationship. It's all sunshine and roses, and then here comes, it's no longer. Whoopsie, and it kind of feels like that cold winter. You don't want to go out. You want to hibernate. You want to wear Snuggies. In fact, you might start wearing slippers full time. You may not put makeup on anymore, and you may be eating a lot of Cheetos. And then sunshine may come, and maybe you don't go back out. And we've got to keep moving forward. So I love your book, Getting to Good Riddance, because I think it is very traumatic for folks when a breakup happens, because sometimes, a lot of times, it's not what you expect is going to happen, and it kind of it's like an earthquake in your world, and it's a grieving, right?
100%, absolutely. And I think the thing is that I see there are themes that are very consistent across folks. And that's what I wanted to tailor the book to. Not everybody goes to therapy, but I think the key thing I want to zero in on is that people get caught up in beating themselves up and what's wrong with me, even if they're the ones who are doing the breakup, right? So how come things don't work out for me, or I don't make good decisions, or whatever. And all of that shame and guilt and embarrassment, that really just slows things down. It clouds things. And so that's what I wanted to zero in on for the book.
I love that. I think because you go there's this weird thing that goes through your mind. You start thinking of every argument and the nasty things that were said, and then you think of the beautiful times. Go, why can't we have that? But you think about some of the comments that were made, and it just becomes even more painful. And sometimes they're just said out of spite or out of the heat of the moment. And all of a sudden, if you're in that zone, it could just go in a real downward spiral real fast when you think back.
Yeah, and one of the things that I say early in the book that I really has a lot of meaning for me, and that the perspective I have is I've heard story after story after story. In fact, I was just doing a rough estimate on how, like, since I started my training, how many hours do I estimate that I've listened to people's stories in one setting or another professionally? And a rough estimate is I'm saying like 15,000 hours. So when I write from a perspective of I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of people. And the difference, so there's grief, as you mentioned before, grief around a breakup, but it's very much like a death, the death of the relationship. But the difference is if somebody died, they didn't really want to leave you, right? And the thought is that if somebody breaks up with you, they didn't want to be with you. And that's the thing that is the knife in the heart.
It is. It's like you're not worthy, right? And then you have to look at them and go, are you worthy? And then there's anger. And sometimes the breakup comes from anger, but still there's those reflection moments once you're alone. And I also even remember about like a significant breakup in my life where I was like, God, I just want to distance myself from everyone. And reading in your book, that's actually kind of good. And that's your except for your friends that you want as a support network. But like, I didn't want to go to the same parties when he was there, or it's almost like I think because it was in a younger phase of my life, obviously, that it was, oh, she's not out and about, but he is. It's kind of a very weird, almost egotistical thing of like, who's moved on the quickest. So you want to go out to prove that you're living, but even though you're like, really, I just want to watch TV and eat popcorn because I haven't done that for a while. It wasn't even anything, you know what I mean? I actually just wanted to do that. But then it was like, oh, she's wallowing. You know what I mean? So I think there's a weird societal thing that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I do tell people, try to stay off social media because it's not, it's a distraction in some regards, but it really just continues to open up wounds because you never know what you're going to come across is the sense of, and I tell people also, like blocking other people on social media, the person who you've broken up with and text, because you may be going about your day and doing pretty well. And then all of a sudden something intrusive comes in and you can't unsee it. So that's the same thing about being on social media. You might be just trying to distract yourself, but come across something that you didn't anticipate. And what you're talking about is self-soothing. And we all have to listen to our internal sense of what we need to be doing, but then sometimes that can be askew. So we have to have friends who are willing to say, hey, what are you doing? Let's get out of this dark room. Let's go do something. It's all about balance, I guess. I
remember once I dated this guy. Remember Pappy, Nancy? That was our nickname for him.
Pappy?
Pappy. We called him Pappy.
Pappy?
You know, and I know.
All right.
But remember Pappy. Well, that was his nickname. He didn't know it, but that was.
Yeah. Well, you should have known from the get-go.
I know. You know.
Pappy, you already knew.
Deep down, you know, right? And then it was kind of a mutual breakup, and it was fresh, and I put this concert together. And this whole performance thing was raising money. It was a fundraiser for music programs for kids in a little mountain town. And I had all these musicians come in, and we're both musicians, and they were pretty, up there in what they've done. And it was just one of those crazy nights where anything that could go wrong did. And he shows up unannounced, and it was kind of fresh. And I was like, leave me alone. And next thing you know, he's picking up this girl right there where we are. Like right there in front of me. And I'm going, like, that's rude. Like, and it was my birthday. I thought that was rude. Like, you don't do that, dude. Not in front of me, like, not now. And it wasn't even jealousy. It was just like, I don't know. It was a very big slap in the face. And
not really.
And I thought a shot of tequila would help, but it was not the good thing to do, Jodie.
See, it wasn't a slap in the face because from my perspective, I was saying, go for it, do it, because then I knew you were free of it.
No, but he did it. He did. To me, he did it in front of me. I was done. I didn't want him in my life, but the fact that he picked up and she was quite the woman about town. No.
Then you got to see the real him because you didn't see the real him. Now you got full blown saw the real him.
I know, but
signed, sealed, deliver. Bye. You know?
See, this is not good. If you live in a small town, you need to hibernate and go to a different place.
No.
Jodie,
you were making an excellent point in that one of the biggest fears that people share with me is, what if I make the same mistake again? And so what I try to address is in the midst of the breakup, you have an opportunity to grow significantly. And one of the things is listening when you said early on you knew it wasn't right. Like being able to say, you know what? Honestly, you're a nice person and all, but I'm not going to go there because this isn't going to go anywhere. And I think, in particular, women tend to talk themselves into it, saying oftentimes, I'm being too picky, or you can't have everything. And I always laugh and say, well, if you're talking about your life partner or potential life partner, why can't you? Why can't you have all the things that you want? You're not going to find anybody who's perfect, but why do you have to settle? And when you do settle, I think in the long game is you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, it's true. You're not. And I think the dating potential is not a good thing. And I think that's also with life. It's like, okay, you're born with a set of cards, and now what are we going to do with it? We want the best we absolutely can. And as women, deep down, you know, and I knew about Pappy. I knew from day one, but I did it and fixed my car, but it wasn't that good, and I knew that.
No, of course not.
No, but no. And I'm just kidding around, but it was, you do know deep down, but we allow ourselves to kind of we do brainwash ourselves, and so you just tell yourself you can fix it. Yeah, that's it. And you can't. You really can't fix somebody else. You can't. No, because they're not meant. That's not. And who the hell do you think you are trying to fix someone else according to what you want? BS right there. So going to your book. Yeah, I'm trying to. It's difficult with your books, Jodie, because my mouth wants to run wild.
Well, something everybody can relate to. Well, and that's the point I've tried to make. Like, it's about breakups, but a couple of people who have read it, the early copy, said, well, it's not even just about romantic relationships. It can apply to friendships and just other relationships you want to break up with. But it's a topic that I think a lot of people can relate to. And to your point, the issue is we all want this fairy tale. But I tell people, if you're talking again about a life partner, it's the floor model. It's as is. You're not, if the person says to you, I am this way, believe them. Don't be thinking, oh, but you could be so much more, because you're right. That's very judgmental, as well as being a little bit self-centered to think that you could take somebody to the next level when they haven't been able to take themselves to that level.
In your own mind, because maybe their level is actually purer than yours at that time. You might be in a superficial plane, and they're like, dude, I'm just down home straight up, and you're off in this la-la land. And because we all 100%. Are in different stages of our lives at different times. But doesn't this have to do with hormones and age and things like that come into play and kind of mess with you a little bit?
Well, can be. And as I talk about in the book, the Robert Sternberg's theory of love, And if you find somebody that you're completely smitten with, you're high in some respects on your own neurochemistry. And so that's why I always tell people who come in my office, date for a full year before you commit, because that first year you're still high at some level. And so let it wear off. And then when the dust settles, do you still like the person you're with? So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because I think, I see things happen really fast. And for some reason, the way our lives are today, they're happening faster and faster. And we're always looking for the quickest way to get something done. And I think that goes into every aspect of your life. So you don't hang back and let me just wait this out, watch it, see what's going to happen. Take it slow. We're just push it, move it forward, move forward. Everyone, we need to move forward. That's all you hear today. We need to move forward. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just good to stay where you are.
It takes some stock, takes some time. But, I think as human beings, I can only speak for myself, like I'm a constant case study in my head. As I get older, I feel like my attention span is less and less. And I feel like that's an issue that we all struggle with. So I'm not sure if that is part of the evolution of the human race. But I think one of the other issues is pain. Nobody wants to sit in pain. No. Because it's a terrible feeling. But if you don't, I tell people you can deal with it now or later, but it's still going to be there whenever you're ready to deal with it.
Yeah, so you can't hide from it. I think what I love about your books, both of them, and I think they complement each other. Move on, mofo. I don't know how to say that correctly on the air. I wouldn't just say it, but, and legally we can, but I know someone's going to, whatever. But move on, mofo. And also, here it is, getting to good riddance. I think they go hand in hand because you really, there's the emotional self-care time, and you do get to mope a little because I think you have to feel your feelings, and you talk about that. And you also, in both books, talk about cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive behavior. And I think this is and I know we talked about that the last time you were on the show, but I think it's such an important thing to discuss. And I love that you use this in both books and bring that up because I think it's really about, like Joan Baez, one of my most favorite quotes in life is, when you're in despair, action is the antidote to despair. And I think your books really go with that quote because you're about let's move forward, and how are we going to move forward? And you're going to have to look at it, and you're allowed to swear and, do what you need to do to get through it, as long as you don't murder somebody or anything. Just,
Oh, good.
Yeah. You don't need to go and do the Carrie Underwood song and beat up his car, or maybe you want to. But, you're going to have the consequences for that, right? So it's not, you do not condone that behavior, but you're getting people, you need to move into the next gear, but it's not like, okay, so somebody breaks up with you after maybe even a 10-year marriage, or they are having an affair on you, and then you find out and it's over. There's a lot of pain associated because it's broken trust. It's not just they don't like you anymore and they're moving on. There's a trust issue, I think. And so there's a lot to deal with, but I think you are allowed to mope a little bit, not too long. You can't be on the couch too long, but you give these really structured to-do lists to start moving you forward and getting out of the pity party. You can't wallow.
Yeah, I think and it is a delicate balance because part of it, again, being in the pain is taking inventory, allowing yourself to feel that. But at the same time, you can't forget about obligations and other things that are healthy. And so it is having a very structured plan. Because again, I've seen these folks over and over, and they have a hard time thinking straight. You're just so overwhelmed with emotion. And so early on, I throw in a survival guide. So getting out of bed and mobilizing your posse and all of that at the same time as you're just trying to sort through your emotions. And one thing you cued me a few minutes ago, I wanted to share this story. It is also, the task is recognizing where is your energy best spent. I had somebody who was seeing me after a breakup who, and this is also very common, who just wanted to tell the other person, or I want to make them see, or just giving them a piece of my mind, right? And my argument around that is, okay, let's think that through. Why do you want to do that? And the answer is usually because I want them to know, I want them to see. And I always say that's the wrong answer. If it is for you, because you need to get something off your chest, that's a different story, or you need closure. But if it's to get the other person to, you're always going to lose at that goal. Like, you've already set yourself up to lose because you can't make anybody, and in fact, continuing a toxic conversation that in some respects, I believe you are giving another person access to your innermost thoughts and feelings, and that person doesn't deserve it at that point because it's over. And so it's like giving them secrets about how you're processing or where you are, and do you really want to share that intimate information? So my point in sharing that is that I through all that pain, it is figuring out where do you want to use your energy, and your energy is best used on healing you.
Absolutely, I agree, because it's going back and taking stock of your life. And I think that's what's beautiful about both of your books, is that you get us to kind of circle back, because also in a relationship, you can get stuck in the other person's world and lose your identity a bit. So I feel that part of this whole process is getting back to who you really are in a relationship. And sometimes breakups are caused because of losing identity and balancing each other's identities. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and I know that I have sort of given a little bit of a negative tone thus far, and breakups aren't always because of negative, like somebody has done something to misbehave or treated you badly. Sometimes you just grow apart. I see people who have been together for years and years and years, and we get so busy with kids or work and other activities that we're just not attentive to each other, and that's just part of human life. And then at some point we reevaluate and we realize, gosh, we don't have the same values anymore, or maybe we're not the friends that we used to be. And that's very sad. Some of those cases, couples therapy works, but sometimes it's just we're just not meant to be together anymore. And so breakups don't always have to be ugly, but indeed they are great opportunities to do that self-reflection and taking the inventory of yourself. And you mentioned CBT earlier, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's being your own best friend. Like, if you were coaching yourself in your head, what things do you need to say to yourself? What things do you need to hear? Because all of the, again, feeling like a failure or judging yourself, that is only going to take you on a detour and prolong your pain.
When someone is in a relationship, especially when it's new, do you think you should kind of go to, CBT, as you say, cognitive behavioral therapy? Kind of, this should be almost a daily practice. Like, when you enter a relationship, kind of write things down, kind of go, okay, you can have the emotions, because there's that beginning phase, especially when you start dating someone, where people all of a sudden want to, like, marry each other right there and then. And some of that, there's that 1%, there's always those wild cards. And then people get attracted to the wild card and want to be that wild card, and they shouldn't. You know what I mean? There's some people that make it work, and, we meet and we haven't been apart since, and they're together for 50 years and, fine. But for others, that's not the case, but they kind of Like, I even look at, like, the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I have to bring that up. Almost like sometimes people connect. And I'm just thinking of some of the famous cases that people can identify with. Anthony Bourdain and that filmmaker lady, you know, they were almost enamored and almost had this wild mindset of who these people are and who they were with without getting to the nitty-gritty, and kind of lost themselves in the process. You know what I mean? Instead of going back to who am I and staying grounded a little bit. How do you balance the emotion, as I'm saying, that wild emotion in the beginning, and stay grounded?
So, and when you're talking about some of those intense relationships, it underscores that being in love, early love, is like being on a drug. And you don't necessarily see things as they are. You see things through that intense emotional high. And I think, so the answer to your question from my perspective is, before you enter in a relationship, so after you've had a breakup, or, you know, even if you've been alone for a while and you're thinking about going into a relationship, be really clear with yourself about what you're looking for and what your weaknesses are. So I tell people to make 3 columns. One column is the things I absolutely must have in a relationship. The third column is the things absolutely I must not have. And to be clear, maybe you don't want a drinker, maybe you don't want a gambler, maybe you don't want somebody who's not working, right? And then the middle column is these things don't matter. And perhaps it's, you know, how tall somebody is or what they look like, whatever. And stick to those, because sure enough, you're going to meet somebody who checks off a lot of things, but maybe it's a religious preference. Maybe it's I must have somebody who is this religion. And you meet somebody who's everything except for that. And you had said early on that was a must, right? So it is, when you talked about writing, when you've just met somebody or you're in love, I encourage people to do that. I don't know that very many people follow through on that, but if you can at least go back and read lessons learned, hopefully you've written after a breakup, these are the lessons I've learned. Or, for example, one of the things that I've seen over and over is women who have been had abusive childhoods where a father was very violent and abusive. And for whatever reason, they are maybe drawn to controlling and potentially abusive men.
Yep.
And it's not that they want that. No, it's not that and they get caught up in, oh, I messed up. No, you're not messed up. There are just qualities that seem familiar, that for whatever reason are familiar to you. And so it's identifying, like, okay, what are those red flag behaviors? So if you meet somebody who is maybe more on the jealous side or is always asking, who are you with? That's a red flag, and note it before you've gotten entrenched in a relationship and walk away.
Isn't the control thing more about, okay, if you let the other person control, you actually don't have to do as much. Like, okay, they're taking care of that, they're handling that. So it's easy sometimes to give over responsibility to somebody else who's more than willing to take it, not always for the right reasons, and then later on you regret it. So sometimes I feel like we get a little lax, like, you know, you can see, okay, that's a controlling. My dad is so controlling that it was beyond and beyond. And there was a certain look in his eye, and when I see that in any person, I go the other way, because I see that, like, here's when I'm mentally responsible and with it, and here's where I crossed over into la-la land, as I call it, where you could see his eyes change into crazy. And so when you see that in a person, it's time to leave. It's time to walk. It's time to
say good riddance.
Yeah. No,
say good riddance.
But there is a familiarity there. So I get what you're saying, where it's like, oh, well, I've seen that before. And it's just, can you handle it, or you're going to do the, and I think this is, people do this. Can I change it? Can I fix it? And
True,
I think that's one of the hardest things is trying to fix something that's really so broken that you can't fix it, and why should you?
That's true. Well, and if you think, and I'm not painting everybody with the same brush, for sure, but if you think about somebody who had a traumatic child experience from domestic violence, maybe they're higher risk of lower self-esteem. Well, it makes them a prime target for people who are trying to control. And so it can be what you said, but it can also be belief of, well, this person knows better, a deference to authority. But then some of these folks who are controlling are masters at manipulation. And so again, everybody, this is maybe the bottom line. Everybody has their own set of baggage. Everybody. And it's just making sure that you find somebody whose baggage lines up in a healthy way with yours.
Well, but this is a really big thing because everybody comes from a different walk of life, and I think it's even important before you date. I mean, sometimes you just get swept off your feet. You meet someone and it's like, ooh, but it is important to take stock, and I love that about your books, and I also love that you put in stories there because you give examples so we can find ourselves in those stories, and I think that's how it, because you can't, everybody's got a different background, everyone's got a different life, and you do a really good job of that in your books of giving us a place to find and identify with, and also the tools to say good riddance and how to move on and kind of think for ourselves, what do we need? We need to have our tools. It's not somebody else's toolkit. It's our own toolkit. Take ownership of that. And, I have a distant cousin who will go from guy to guy to guy. She breaks up, goes to the next one, and almost will not break up with the one she knows she needs to leave until she's got the next one
ready.
set up. And I go like, what are you doing? Have you ever just stopped and lived life on your own to know who you are anymore? I mean, but I think in a weird way she's being cognitive because she's setting the next one up, which is really weird, and it's not even a financial thing. So what is that? Because I see it's not just her, but I see this with a lot of women will just bounce from one to the next without that break and I just always feel like it's good to breathe and be on your own. It really feels good. I've been doing it for a while. It feels good.
I laugh. And I don't mean this, I don't laugh at Bull, but you can't help. I say that I am, sometimes I recognize that there is a sadistic nature in the things that I say to people, because I do tell people, look, you need to work on being alone. And the look on their face is like I slapped them. They don't want to hear that, but I am very supportive in saying, I get it. I get it that it's scary, but here's the thing: if you don't master that, it owns you. And I'm not saying that you have to be alone for the rest of your life, but I think that relationship should be an enhancer to your life, not your life becomes all about that relationship. And the most important relationship is the relationship with yourself. So take some time and get to know yourself by yourself. What do you like alone? And then you're going to be in the best place to find the partner that you want who's more long-term.
See, I really agree with that. And that's something like I laugh about me being single for so long because I got to a point, I just said, that's it. I'm done. Like literally just said, I'm done. I've had the amazing love story, and that it didn't happen because I didn't want kids. He wants kids. We're, politically completely opposite, and things were just, as much as you had that fire and that love, this was not going to happen because of some fundamental differences, and that love obviously wasn't going to overcome those main issues. And there was just things that I've had a plan since I was 17 years old, and I'm living it, and I'm loving it, And I always said, okay, I'm done with this. I know what dating's like. I know what playing around is like. I know what it's like to be in love. I've done a quick marriage and said, yep, I did it, so I can say I did it. Done with that. And now I know exactly who, what, and where I want. I know. And I'm not saying I would never date again or not be in a relationship again. I just actually really don't care. I just like, it has to be, you know what I mean? It's like once you know who you are, it's like that's what it's got to be. And it's a very empowering feeling to be in that zone of understanding yourself and knowing what sacrifices you would do. Because you can, kind of.
Well, don't you have to?
You can give on things that, like, I mean, not one person wanting a child and the other not. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal in a relationship.
What was that movie with Tom Cruise where you complete me? That
makes me sick.
I know, but see, here's the thing. You need to be a complete person on your own before you subject yourself to somebody else, or
Are we ever complete? Are we ever complete?
Well, no. I think that's a thing that you work on day to day for your whole life. I don't think you're ever complete, perfect, whatever.
Jodie, I think we need to come sit on your chair in Michigan.
You're welcome anytime.
Thinking back, my grandmother used to tell me when you're going out on a date, the first thing you should ask the guy is, can you wiggle your ears? And she says whether they can or not that's not the point. It is, will they try? And if they won't even try, then you got the wrong guy. That's what she used to say. And it sounds really weird, but later I started to really think about that, and it's true. If they won't try, then you see a side of this person where they can't laugh at themselves, they can't try something new. You see what I'm saying? Where maybe,
interesting.
Yeah, because it's like, can you wiggle your ears? It's totally out of the box. Who's going to ask that? And then they sit there and they look at you like, what are you talking about? Well, can you wiggle your ears? Some people go, yeah, I met 3 who could. I'm like, that's
put that on
funny.
Matchmaker.
I know, it's pretty funny. I could wiggle my ears. I'm like, dude, that's pretty cool. But then others wouldn't even try, and they were like almost insulted. Yeah, it's like, I used to tell Nana, my grandmother, I used to say, I'm not asking that anymore. It gets me in trouble. But now I think it's to ask. But just to see how they handle it. When you find out
I'm not that much fun, I guess. And I do joke about that as well. Like, I'm great at taking the fun out of everything. Love,
but you can swear.
All of it. I try
You're
to
good at swearing.
make. Yeah, I do swear.
Me too.
That does get a laugh.
I love
but,
it.
Other than that, I break everything down to science and the evidence. And when people are asking me, they've identified these are the things that trip me up. How do I get control of that? I say look at your dates as interviews, which I think you were alluding to with your question about wiggling the ears. But I tell them to ask about things like family. Tell me about how well do you get along with your mom and your dad, or both your moms if you came from 2 moms, or how do you get along with your family and their relationships, because that is going to tell you. As long as the person's honest, assuming that you've got somebody who's honest, that's going to tell you. And that gets to the honest piece gets to my other is I tell people all the time, judge other people by what they do, not by what they tell you.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
You want the evidence.
Oh, see, I like this. I love the science part of it and the evidence. That's
I want to see them wiggle their ears.
Right, but that is like, but it is like, okay, so what if they came from a bad childhood and maybe they hate their family, right? Maybe they're just like, I can't be around them, but what did they do to move forward past that? That to me would be the interesting part. You don't have to go like, okay, well, that's because I don't know anybody now that doesn't have some chinks in their family armor.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
People are people.
Everybody, we're human beings and we screw up all the time. and we're allowed that. So there's that balancing, and it is a negotiation in a way, don't you think? Relationships, it's still a negotiation in some. I don't think can it be. This airy fairy thing doesn't really work. I don't think.
Airy fairy. I don't know.
No,
if
but
I
I mean,
that.
this lovey-dovey, like it's all roses every single day. That doesn't work. That doesn't seem to sit with me.
I'm
not being cynical.
Realistic.
I know.
Well,
I'm just saying it. You go from all roses to the honeymoon is over. Everybody knows that saying, and it shouldn't. People are people, and we do put on like ooh la 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 when we're first dating and meeting each other. Right. And no, I don't wear this dress every single day. And yes, everybody has weird habits and annoyances can push towards a breakup, right? So
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the other piece is that I think that's the bill of goods. Some people have been sold is this idea if you meet the right person, in quotes, you don't have to work at it. No. All relationships take work. And in the United States, I think we have a culture of we're entitled to happiness. And I usually, again, I'm taking away people's enjoyment because I say you have to actually work to be happy. Happiness isn't like a dove that sort of descends down upon you. You actually have to put thought and effort into it. So relationships, happiness, it all takes work. And I'm highly suspicious of people who tell me these fairy tale stories of their lives. I just don't find that to ring true.
And what about where you get people like the daters, like you talk about bad actors in your book, and you do have to deal with some, because sometimes you have to be the person going, I'm breaking up with you. So part of good riddance is screw you. but listen, look at women with kids, or men. Everybody. We're in such a the world is diverse, and so a woman may be leaving another woman with kids, and there's thought that has to be in there because you've got to think of the kids. So sometimes you can't just have a temper tantrum storm out, right? I know, Nancy,
I'm laughing because one time Lisa broke up with a guy and his mother came to talk to me and brought 2 champagne glasses. He was trying to get them back together again. And
because they engraved our names on the champagne.
My gosh.
So I laughed. I
am known for breaking up with people on the holidays, and I've never planned it that way. And so here we are on the 4th of July weekend talking about breakups. So I think as soon as this all came together, I'm like, here I am again talking about breakups on a holiday weekend.
But it was funny.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Some mothers, like they talk about mother-in-laws in weddings, and then later when it's like the breakup, they come out of the woodwork, man. And when they start going to your mother and asking for help, like it was funny. That was weird. You're right about asking about the parents. You're really right.
All I could say to her is it's a good thing she broke up with your son, because obviously you guys got a problem, because seriously,
it was sick.
Really, that was weird.
You'd never. I broke up with him because he was just irresponsible, stupid, and
Stop it.
But Jodie says we're allowed to say that kind of stuff. We're allowed to get it out, and this was years ago, but he was irresponsible. He was not like contributing to anything at this point, and it was
and guess what happened to the champagne glasses?
When your mother comes with you to try and get you back and to go back into the relationship, you have a problem.
Red flag.
That's a huge.
More than red flag. It's red, purple.
It's one of those giant ones, and it's like, hello. When the dog is growling at you behind the closed door, you need to know. The dog. I was hiding in another room with my friend and her dog, the dog wanted to attack him. So it's like, hello. This is like, you got to go. Like that's. But but this is the nitty gritty of real relationship stuff that happens. People sometimes don't take no. Like when you say, I'm breaking up with you, we are done. You want to handle it really nicely. And sometimes, you can't be subtle with people like that when the mother comes storming out of the backwoods of, literally the backwoods. When that happens.
Wait. I should have had that story because that sounds like it would fit right into my how to handle bad actors because I go through how to handle all these people who are off the radar, but your story would have fit perfectly.
That bad actors was it, and they made us pay for his birthday dinner. So like there's a whole thing here. So it's like almost like a family cult of wanting your money. Actually,
it was weird.
It was a very
odd.
weird thing. And we're not like fancy rich, but like they see magazine and it's like so it was a very interesting thing. And but that is the bad actors. But getting rid of them,
I still think it's funny.
That's like that is a horrible experience when you want to just say, hey, this isn't working anymore. Can we part? Can you go back to your backwoods and I'm going up the mountain? Like that apparently didn't work.
Well, Brene Brown has used over and over in multiple scenarios, and it is to be clear is to be kind. And women have been socialized that to be clear is to be rude, and it's not.
Yeah.
If you're clear with somebody, then you are allowing them to be free to go on with their lives, and there's no ambiguity. You don't have to be mean, but you need to do it.
See, we're supposed to be mysterious. Remember that old thing of women being mysterious, So
no, that's a bad actor. No, see, look at
that.
Okay.
No, but that is historically women are supposed to be mysterious,
and that is the ones that get people. The women that do take that. That's the Amber Heards and all. I mean, I don't know what really went down there, right? But that is where those guys get enamored by those crazy women that poop on their bed. Like, that's a bad actor. I'm sorry. When you have to end up in a court case and say your wife pooped on your side of the bed.
No, she didn't poop.
That's some weird stuff.
It was a fecal delivery.
Yes,
Get it right.
but that is some weird, like crazy stuff. And I'm just saying, like,
I think people do crazy things.
Would you say that's a bad actor, Jodie?
I think I'm no expert on that story, but I suspect they were both bad actors. That
well, their court
very
case sure was.
But that's Hollywood, we always have to remember that both of them are actors. They make a living out of being other people. So when they're in court, it's very interesting because when you're in court, are they them or are they some new character in their own mind? Because they are.
I wondered that myself, interestingly.
Yeah, because when you watched her, she kind of wiped. This is what I saw about her, watching her body language. She would wipe a tear before there was one. Yeah. So I was like, okay, you're not really crying, but you're wiping your eye, and there's nothing there, and then there's a tear. So I'm like, you're a little off on your timing. And then with him, he kept looking down, like at his boots or something. Like, I'm like, okay, you keep looking down. She looks out to the side, wipes a tear that's there. So I look at them both, and I'm like, I don't believe either one.
Well, I want to go to you, Jodie, with this because you talk about bad actors with talk about those two, right? But I mean, I look at Anthony Bourdain and the woman he was with, and he lost his life over this, and obviously had issues leading up to that. But these are some famous cases. But when you talk about bad actors, they always say, like, when you're reaching for your goals and, you go for that job or you are starting a business, just, fake it till you make it thing.
No.
How many people do you think do that in their relationships? Fake it, like kind of start to change who they are in a relationship to kind of maybe have an infatuation with someone and kind of if somebody likes this music, they'll pretend to like that music. Do you know what I mean? And I know that sounds very teenage, but I kind of suspect that adults do it too. Maybe.
I think probably a lot of people do to some degree, and that gets back to why I tell people to date a full year, because you'll get to see that play out, and it's very difficult to continue to play that role long term. And so I usually tell people, you're high for about 6 months, and then the next 6 months you're still feeling really good, but you're starting to regress back to the mean, to regress back down to your baseline. And so that's why we shouldn't be in a hurry, because I think there is some human nature in wanting to try to please somebody or want to be liked. It's the extent to which that happens that can be pathological.
Yeah. So are you going to write your next book on politicians?
Oh gosh.
that language would have to go up a notch. I'm just saying.
Well, I will share this with you. You mentioned that you knew of Turner. I love Turner, and they signed me. They signed my next book, and it comes out in February. And I'm gonna tell you the name of it because it relates sort of to what you're saying, and it's called Badass Stories: Grit, Growth, Hope, and Healing in the Shit Show. And I wrote that book because I think we're in a dark period, and we need to hear very, very real stories of real human beings out there surviving and thriving, as a reminder that it's not all about the political headline of the day, that there are some really good people out there doing some really good things that are inspirational that we can all relate to, not like the people who got $1 million or CEOs of big companies, like the everyday kind of humans. So that's my next book.
Oh, I love this. And let me take that, exactly what you're talking about, because I think this is really important. And, Nancy and I bringing up Amber Heard and Anthony Bourdain, Johnny Depp, all that, it's been, it's just nonstop out there in the news. Yep. But it is like, this dark period. And it is like seriously, we got climate change. We got all these issues facing us, and it's craziness. It just is insanity. When you turn on the news, you just want to have another shot of tequila, quite frankly. And you say in your book not to do. See how many people have a breakup and then they go to the bar and they get hammered for 24 hours and then they basically have to puke their brains out, and then you wake up in the morning and you've got a hangover from that and a hangover from the actual real issue, So you talk about that too in your book. But really going to this, how much of, I know we talked about the the fairy tales and what we've been told is growing up, but how much of the superficial media stuff, and I'm not talking politically, but you look at women are airbrushed to the point of insanity. Boob jobs, butt jobs, lip jobs. Every job you can get. So women are still in this zone of we need to be the Cupid doll kind of thing. So we're still there, even as progressive as our world used to be for women. We have the Cupid doll thing. So still need to kind of, for women, it's just kind of, and then I think, gay men too. There's just we can't look at Hollywood and movies. We need to look at the real stories. That's what I was saying about your new book coming out, because in February next year, we tend to think Hollywood, and it's not what our regular lives are all the time. You know what I mean? That we need to really dig down. And I think that's what's great about your books, that you always give these examples and stories that we can go, we find ourselves in there, because we keep looking at ourselves at Hollywood, and and don't look at politicians at all. And if you're dating a politician person, run like hell. Just kidding, unless they're good. If you have a good one, please let us know. We're looking for one. Just to know that they're there.
The thing is that, and that was sort of like a guiding principle in writing my new book is I wanted to write about everyday people who I thought the theme or the issue they were struggling with would resonate, because the problem is I think that there's a lot that's written out there that's inspirational, and I'm not knocking it. It's just that we never feel like we can measure up to that because it's so grand. And so it's the same thing on social media or Hollywood stories. We're never going to quite feel like we measure up to that. But the punchline is that isn't real. And
exactly.
I just want people to get in touch with, this is real life. This is what it looks like. And one of the things I say in my new book is my stories don't end up wrapped up in a bow. It's just this is where the person is now in their journey, and they're going to continue in their journey. There is no there. There is dead. That we're all works in progress.
And we all swear, come on, I don't care how la-di-da you are. You're gonna,
come on.
Everybody somewhere, sometimes. And,
it's
they used
creative.
to say, I know we talked about that the last time you were on the show, but get over it. We all have there's certain words that are really, don't say this, but it does feel the most liberating. We had a situation a few months ago.
You're doing something you're not supposed to.
And Nancy and I were walking around in this house going, there was just nothing I could really go into without it being a long diatribe story. But we were walking around and I'm like, dude, there's just only certain words that can be used. And it was swearing that got us through, honestly. And so I called up on YouTube certain comedians that knew how to say the word better than us. And I was just like, let's just listen. And as soon as we heard that, we're like, okay, we can move forward. And I was thinking of you, and we didn't even know you were going to come back on the show. But I was thinking of you because it was like sometimes you just need that humor or that steam to go off. And I want people to understand it's come on, people. We all kind of like want to say like, God damn it, or whatever. Oopsie, sorry, it's Sunday.
It's science. It's science. It's based on real science, I swear.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Did you always swear, or did you start have you always just kind of, are you swearing all the time in your life, or is it like for certain situations?
No, seriously, and this is the thing. People say to me who they don't know I've written these books, and they find out, they're like, I would have never expected that from you because you always seem so proper or whatever. Right. And that's the key to the swearing is if you use it all the time, it doesn't have a punch. It has to be cathartic, and it has to be sort of novel. And so I do use it, quite honestly, a fair amount in therapy with people who are okay with it. I don't use it with everybody. I'm like, oh, that's effed up. And I'll say that, and they're like, yeah, I thought so too. It makes me so good to know that you thought the same thing. And it's used intentionally. So
yeah. And do you have a favorite word?
Well, it sort of depends. I do use the mother effer word a fair amount, but as a laugh. But if I'm angry, it's something completely different. So my swear words are either more for anger or more for shock and catharsis.
Yeah,
in
and
terms
if
of
you're
laughing.
doing it in a different language, like a different language, or an accent is, to me, if you're going, just do the Royal British, like you mother. Like it's just so much better to do it in different languages and different accents, and it just is so much, Just watch Jim Jeffries. Now I'm going to get in trouble.
I probably said this before the last time we talked to you, but I did my term paper in English literature on the word F-U-C-K. It's not a word. It's an abbreviation that stands
It's not a word.
No, it's not a word. It's an abbreviation for fined for unlawful carnal knowledge. And this is back in the 1750s to 1800s, where women were put in a chair, strapped in a chair, and dumped underwater for certain things, and they would stamp on the legal cases F-U-C-K, F period U period C period okay, period, because they were fined for having sex with someone they weren't married to. The men were never fined or dunked or anything happened to them for having sex with someone they weren't married to. Only the women were. So that is where that word comes from.
100 years later, Van Halen put out an album, Fine for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. It's very important. Right. See, they knew.
So
they knew.
It's not even a word, so I don't know how people can get upset over a word that's not a word.
But there's I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but there is the history of swear words on Netflix. And
that was funny.
Nicolas Cage is the host, which is hysterical. Like, it's just bizarre. It's bizarre. So, like, I just recommend people watch that if they're into that. But, Jodie, all right. You know what? I love you being on the show. I love it. It's just great.
Thank you.
Because it's fun, but you add realism to, you make sense, and you allow people to say, oh, this totally sucks, and say it the way they want to, and there's a liberation with that, and I think that's an important thing in life, to have some liberation, because that's how you you even talk about that in your book, like that's how you start to climb back out, is have that, and you talk about anger being actually a good tool, obviously not going crazy, but once you say, like, move on, mother effer, you start to feel, oh, yeah, I said it. Now I got to actually do, like, the work, and you start moving forward. And I think there's a lot of inspiration to living your best life in your books, whether you're tackling move on or, like, hey, relationship's gone bad. It's all about living your best life and knowing who you are and taking stock. And shit happens when you don't take stock of who you are. It's always important to go back to yourself, and I love that about your book. So, everyone, Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt.com is the website. The book is Getting to Good Riddance, a no BS breakup survival guide. It comes out July 26th through Turner Publishing. You can, of course, order it on Amazon and all those places. But, it is Champagne Sunday, so I want to say, can we do a mother effing toast? I had to. I couldn't help it. There's snakes on the plane somewhere. No,
yes, I know.
Champagne Sundays is, our flagship show for many years. It's 15 years this year, 15 and a half now. Where Nancy said, well, if we're going to do this show, we're going to do it on a Sunday. We're going to have our champagne, as we do every Sunday. Right. It's bubbly. It's not always champagne. Sometimes it's a beer. Sometimes it's tea. It's about taking time out to look at the good in life. And I believe, Jodie, wouldn't you agree? When shit goes down, whether it's a breakup or anything else in life, isn't it good to take time out to find the good in life?
And sometimes it can be a struggle, but yes, it's good to get there.
Yeah. So Champagne Toast is about always finding the good no matter how bad it is out there. So what is your toast, Jodie? You are our guest, so you get to go first.
Thank you. And I want to say that psychologists struggle too. And lately I've noticed that it has been extra, extra hard for me. And so what I am grateful for is the opportunity to hear all of the stories that I have heard. And it gives me perspective, and it reminds me that there are some really good people out there, and I'm not alone. And I am so grateful for that, having that perspective.
Ooh, I toasted that. By the way, toast your next book coming out, right? Both of them. I want to go back on that. That's really important. With COVID, right, and all that's going on in the world, shootings, climate change. There's a long list. Therapists must be really kind of getting it too. We're looking at frontline workers all the time, but therapists too, right? Kind of feeling the pressure.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, wow.
Right, we go ahead.
Hold on, you there? Okay, sorry, you there?
Yeah. We hear a lot, but yet it does give perspective. It's all about sort of, I guess my point is, I get to decide what I do with it, and whether I'm going to feel like a victim or I'm going to feel like a survivor.
So survivor is good. We got to stay in that zone. Kind of like that's
Trying
a good.
to.
Is that part of cognitive behavioral therapy? Is go like right there. Make that
it's
choice
being intentional.
immediately.
Yep. Saying, okay, you can't help what happened, but you get to decide intentionally what you want to do with it now. And it's not like you flip a switch, but you decide what you're going to work on. You pick a path.
Right on. I love that. I just love what you bring to our lives, through your written word and being on the shows, because I just think it's so important that we can take control of our lives. And it's not woo-woo. Like you say, science, evidence-based. It's so important to take stock that's not over-emotional, too. And you really do that in your books, where it's like, okay, this is what you really want. Like if there's like the true thing versus the woo-woo, like it's cognitive. So I think that's important, and we still get to have our pie in the sky dreams, right? That's important too.
Sure.
We still get to have that. Yeah. And like you said, we can have all that. If we want a partner that has all that, go for it. I want that. That's why I don't settle. I just said after that last one, when the guy shows up, on Christmas Eve with champagne glasses and the mother, when he sends his mother and he's hiding behind his mother, like hell to the no. Anyway, Nancy, what? I'm toasting that relationship was way over many years ago. But Nancy, what are you toasting
your
to?
Toast is you survived that. You're not married to that.
Hell no, but it was like exactly. I just went, that's it. I'm done. I just literally if I had those glasses in my hand, I probably would have smashed them like in the fireplace, because we did have it was winter in the mountains. I would have probably just put them in there and said, that's it. Good night. Because it just was at that point I went, you are so off track,
Still, it's funny.
And that's it. And I stopped and I went, this is what I really did. We moved. We went through a bunch of wildfires. We had all kinds of stuff happen in our life. And I stopped and I said, time to recollect. And even had a relationship of someone that was always like a, big person in my life. Like, ooh, if anything, like that's the one. And when that time came, said no. Because I knew exactly what I wanted to do in life and would not steer from that path. And, dude, no. I would have to give birth, and I didn't want to do that. They always want birthings, and I don't want the birthings. And no, but that's a thing. But that's an important thing for women. It is an important thing to think about. If you don't want to do the birthing, you don't have to. And you don't need to be with someone who's going to force you into that mode. And if you want to have it, great. Jodie, you've birthed. Nancy, you've birthed. Thank God I'm here. But if you don't want to, it's a very difficult thing for a woman of like, men go, no, what do you mean you don't want to birth? I don't want to birth. I'm not letting a watermelon roll off of me.
It's actually called having a baby.
The other thing you can be grateful for is that you were raised in a way that made you confident enough to know that and to stand by it and to not brush it aside. So good for you.
It's a big deal. It's a big. To me, it's actually a huge part of my philosophy of life. And Nancy always said, "Go do what you want." And if this, I didn't have to do that. All my friends gave birth instead of me. I can't hear you, Nancy. Nancy's talking. We can't. Can you hear her, Jodie?
Oh, I cannot.
No, Nancy, we can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us, but come back. Call back in. I'm going to give my champagne toast while we get Nancy back on the air. But champagne toast is, actually, I'm not in a relationship I don't want to be in, and I'm in a good place, exactly, following my dreams. And I think that goes really with Jodie's book, again, Getting to Good Riddance, a no BS breakup survival guide, coming out July 26, 2022. Nancy, are you back? She's not. Jodie, thank you for joining us. It has been such a pleasure having you back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, and maybe I will talk with you again in the winter.
Oh, you better. You better come back. We we want you back. Anytime. Nancy, you there? Did I hear you? Nope. Nope, she's not there. Okay, we're going to close with a song called, wait 1 second, because I hate to do a Champagne Sunday show without her toast. It's her thing. Nancy, you there?
Am I back?
Yes. Thank
What
you.
happened?
I don't know. I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Maybe it's all that anger, right? So what's your champagne toast? We can't have a Champagne Sunday show without Nancy's toast. That's like rude.
I think deep down people really do know more about themselves than they may be willing to address or admit. So my toast to those who will take a chance to find out about themselves, go get help if you need it, go read books, do whatever it takes to know yourself so you can be the best that you can be. I toast for that. Listen to everybody, especially the ones who put you down, but don't do bad. Just don't do bad. I toast to people who find out about themselves, educate themselves, move forward, and do good. That's what I toast to.
Right on. And if you can't go see Jodie, get her book.
Exactly. There's help out there.
Is that why you did the book? Because, you can't have everybody on your couch, right?
Right.
Do you have a couch?
And because there's some things that are just so predictable, and I thought, why not put it out there to reach a wider number of people?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really have a couch, though? Is it a...
I do have a couch, and I also have a chair. People can sit wherever they want.
Okay, cool. Do you have a plant? You need a plant in the room. If you have a couch, you have to have a plant.
I don't have a plant. I would kill the plant. That's the problem.
Oh, see, that's it. Straight up honesty. See, that's the best policy.
There you go.
Everyone, Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt.com is the website. Getting to Good Riddance, a no BS breakup survival guide. Turner Publishing is the publisher, and you can get it July 26, 2022, but you can pre-order on Amazon and all those great places. Of course, keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. We want to thank you all for joining us. We're going to close the show with the song Witness Protection, because I had to. Allison August is an amazing blues singer, and this is from her album Holy Water, and you can go to AllisonAugust.com. That's Allison with 2 L's, but here it is, Witness Protection. I thought it was a good song for today's show. Thank you so much, Jodie. You take care.
Thank you.
Creeping up behind me, I feel you breathing down my neck. Didn't take long for you to find me, like a monkey on my back. I sleep with one eye open and my ear to the ground. May not help, but I'm hoping to be long gone when you come around. Now I need witness protection, baby, and hiding out from you. The evil things you do.